In 1987, DC published a 3-issue miniseries in the vein of The Dark Knight Returns. It was named Green Arrow, The Longbow Hunters. The Longbow Hunters took on the massive task of rebooting the character of Oliver Queen. Only one man could do it, and his name was Mike Grell. Grell worked on Green Lantern Green Arrow with Denny O'Neil for a while, but more importantly, he created one of the most influential indie comics ever made that still goes under the radar. In 1983, Mike Grell drew and wrote the comic John Sable Freelance. John Sable Freelance was a gritty noir comic about John Sable, a mercenary whose family had been killed, and ever since that day, he went on a quest for vengeance. Sable was a soldier of fortune / mercenary who had the characteristics of Philip Marlowe mixed with James Bond. The series had an absolutely amazing atmosphere. Rain-soaked city streets, femme fatales, and real-world issues that crept their way into the stories but didn't feel forced. But that was the thing. Mike Grell had a philosophy in mind where his hero didn't discriminate. Black, white, terrorist, Nazi, communist, it didn't matter. If you were a radical of any kind and if you caused the world hurt on purpose, he'd find you and bring you to justice. And this is where we get to Green Arrow, where that philosophy was fully realised, where Denny O'Neil wrote a radical liberal, which everybody still thinks the Green Arrow character is to this day. Mike Grell wrote a far more grounded and realistic version, which is way less retarded. So I'm sorry to break your heart, but when we actually look into it and actually read the comics that the character is in, he hasn't always been a radical leftist like you believe. Warning before we continue, this will contain spoilers for The Longbow Hunters and Mike Grell's Green Arrow run. So go right now, buy it and read it. You will not regret it, because my god, is it one of the most underrated and overlooked stories ever. So an aging Oliver Queen and Dina Lance move into the seedy noir world of Seattle, which I believe is one of the best settings for a comic. It matches Frank Miller's Hell's Kitchen or Frank Miller's Gotham. All crime is rampant. The city is overrun by drugs, prostitution, and most importantly, murder. So when a serial killer is loose on the underworld of Seattle, an older Oliver Queen must come back into the fold. Oliver Queen drops the persona of the smiling hero we once saw in the Justice League. He drops all of the gimmicky trick arrows and takes up an old-fashioned longbow. As we see this grim vision of Seattle, we get treated to some of the most haunting yet kick-ass dialogue you've ever seen in a comic book. There are all kinds of hunters. Some hunt to survive, and others just like to watch things die. But some hunt the hunters. The story of this comic has an atmosphere similar to the film Seven. Investigative, incredibly paced, and in my personal opinion, it actually surpasses The Dark Knight Returns. Mike Grell creates a Green Arrow that is the opposite of the whiny libtard that we all know. Oliver Queen is transformed into a veteran of vigilante justice and detective work. This comic truly is an epic R-rated noir filled with blood, guts, and harsh truths about shady three-letter agencies. This book touches on the Iran-Contra scandal, anti-drugs, and the Japanese internment camps. Say what you want about all those topics, but it's a fact that this is an expertly written mystery that fits in its message perfectly and doesn't force it down your throat. And to the people putting this in the same conversation as Denny O'Neil's Question, you're entirely incorrect. Mike Grell has been writing street-level vigilante stories long before Denny O'Neil even touched off of The Question. So stop putting them in the same conversation. The Question is a messy, liberal piece of trash. Green Arrow is a realistic take on the world that is comic book mastery. Mike Grell, in my opinion, is up there with Frank Miller for being a master of writing grim, dark detective stories within the pages of comic books. And the quality of The Longbow Hunters just continues on into the full Green Arrow run. Within the first 2 issues of the Green Arrow run, we already have some of the best displays of detective work and real justice ever portrayed in a comic book. Each issue builds on that dark world that we were introduced to in The Longbow Hunters. Then we see the return of Shadow in the 4-issue storyline, Here There Be Dragons. And in my opinion, that storyline is an underrated gem that nobody talks about. It's almost as good as Longbow Hunters itself. Mike Grell's Green Arrow universe has a mythology. It actually has an ongoing arc, and nobody talks about this. I see lists all the time of the DC comic books that everybody everybody should read. The Question by Denny O'Neil will even make it on there, but nobody mentions this run. Maybe because he's not a liberal for the entire thing. He's not whining and preaching into your face for every single page. So this comic is an absolutely underrated gem. One of the best in the entire medium, in my opinion. All in all, Mike Grell managed to reinvent Green Arrow from a whining loser into the perfect vigilante detective. So reject deconstructions of all your favorite heroes and embrace the vengeance-fueled justice that is Mike Grell's Green Arrow.
See ya, dirtbag.